everyone, welcome back to Sierra Foothills. So this is the video that comes after the pandemic video. We're still up here. I'm still on work furlough, weathering the storm, trying to keep my social distancing, and getting a lot of stuff done here, hopefully. Today we'll be doing a lot of things, but we'll devote this video to tree planting. It's spring, it's time of the year to put stuff in the ground. It's very challenging up here to plant anything. The mortality rate of plantings is very high. We learned that the hard way, unfortunately. The challenges are, in no particular order, the weather. It's very hot up here during the summer. July, August, and September, you will have 30, 40, 50 days over 90 degrees. You might have a handful of days up to 100 degrees. So it's very hot. The other challenge, climate-wise, is that it becomes very dry here. We get about 30 inches of rain every year, but it's a dry, hot Mediterranean climate. And once April rolls along, you probably won't see rain till October at the soonest. So you go through about 6 months without any rain at all. So irrigation is very important. Pocket gophers are a huge problem here. And the other common wildlife problem is deer, and that's pretty universal to most of the United States. The deer are voracious here, and they will attack anything and everything, even plants that are considered deer resistant. The deer here don't seem too picky about what they eat, so they browse on everything. There's a lot of challenges to planting here. I'll show you over the 5 years that we've been here the methods that I've employed to increase our success rate. We'll be planting some trees today, so let's get to it. This is a native plant. It's called toyin, and although it's native, we actually purchased and planted this. You can see it's got a serrated leaf. It's got a hard and waxy leaf with prickly serrations on it. It's considered to be deer resistant, but you can see quite clearly the deer have been munching on it. So this is not being planted or replanted. Just an example of a plant that's having a hard time out here because the deer are ruthless. This plant here is also a native plant, but one that we purchased and planted here, and it's an oak leaf cherry. And once again, it's got a very hard leaf. It's got a prickly leaf, and yet once again, you can see the deer damage. And they've been ruthless on this. These oak leaf cherries, native, they produce a cherry with a large stone. It's not a meaty cherry, but it has good flavor and it has blossoms, and it's a beautiful plant, except for the deer have been preying on it. So this one is going to be replanted, and it's going to join two other oak leaf cherries that we planted up there. It's not doing well here. You can see it's kind of leaning over, which I thought was a cool thing to do at the time. But so our first assignment today is to replant this tree. This is in the area where the tree is just at ground level. There's this kind of jelly-like stuff here. I think it's the manifestation of their sap. It could be that this has been attacked by a pest or something. But anyway, just an observation. Not necessarily anything I can do about it other than keep an eye on it. To pry the oak leaf cherry out of the ground, I'm not hearing too much cracking, so there hasn't been a lot of root development, at least not that I'm damaging. Here, you should be able to see the gopher netting that we protect it from pocket gophers with. And I've had this situation a few times where I transplanted trees to spots which I thought they were better suited for. And the netting came in handy because I could actually rope onto it, lift it out of the ground, and bring it to its new planting hole. So far it's going well. I believe this is called schist. by geologists. And I'm told it's used for flint knapping, arrowheads, spearheads, things like this. They're all over the property. You just find them sometimes in groups, sometimes just by themselves. They occur very frequently here. Yeah, the locals call them potatoes. I heard that term first by a rockmonger, someone who runs a quarry around here, and he disparagingly called them potatoes. But we have lots of them, and we, put them to good use whenever we can. What's new, huh? Did you come over all the way across the street just to say hi? You did. You're licking my hand, you. What a good boy you are. It's good to see you. Kind of a crappy day, but you just made it a lot better. Yes, you did. You can see the previously planted oak leaf cherry here, and the one on the tarp over here that we just pulled out of the ground. I'm putting it right where the auger is there, and it'll be kind of rounded. A lot of people don't like using augers when they're planting trees, grapevines, especially in clay soil. There's sometimes a tendency for the auger action to compact and glaze over the sides of the planting hole. But that's easily remedied by just taking a good spade shovel to it and chopping up the sides of the hole and making it more porous and less glazed over. Here is the tree that we just pulled out of the ground. I'm going to try to upright it. I think the bonsai look was a little bit of a failed experiment, so we're going to make it stand upright. You can see behind it there's the gopher cage there. The gopher cage is going to replace the gopher cage that's on there now. One of the things that I've learned over the years is to really make the root zone a lot larger, protect more of the root zone, so by the time the fine root hairs travel beyond the gopher cage, the plant is so firmly established that even if a gopher were to come in there and nibble away at the roots, it's not going to do any damage. So we're going to create a larger protected root zone for this tree. So let's start up the tractor. Well, I've said before, I'm not an expert. I don't profess to be an expert. A lot of what I've learned in this area and many other areas is just based on trial and error. But there's been a lot of trial and a lot of error. I've had a lot of plants die on us. So one of the lessons you'll see here is the hole is substantially larger than the root. We didn't skimp on the hole. We didn't skimp on the gopher wire. We're not going to skimp on anything. Here you can see where I was talking about the clay compacting and glazing and everything. So we'll just scarify it with one of the garden tools. And you can see the tree that we took out of the ground relative to the hole that we just made. There's going to be a much larger root zone. Also with regard to the gopher netting, we'll install it in a way that it comes up the sides and wraps over the top, so that the gophers can't simply climb up to the trunk of the tree and burrow down. So we used to just protect the roots, and we found that they were circumventing the netting by climbing above ground and going back down again, which they don't like to do, but they will if they're desperate. So, all right, let's put her in the ground. Got to press it down, get the soil screened through the gopher wire. Hands first, feet second. fine line between too compacted and not compacted enough, so you just got to use your best judgment. The difference between the way this tree was planted 4 years ago and the way it's going to be planted now is like night and day. You can see from the nursery, the potting soil here, clear division between that and the native soil, which is mostly clay. So it's going to be put in a much better position. The root ball and feeling for roots, any roots that are going through the gopher wire, I'm just gently pulling them through the wire, trying to maintain as much of the roots as we can. So that horse is very upset because its stablemate was taken away yesterday, and they just moved here, and so it's the first time it's been alone here in this area. So okay, so that's not bad. There was not really much root development in 4 years, and that's my fault. It just wasn't planted right. So the thing that might have happened here is it might have been planted too deeply, which I typically don't do. I'm very good about that, but you're almost always better planting too high than too low. It's very possible that this all should have been above ground. There's kind of a main crotch right here. The root crown is right here, so that should be at ground level. A lot of plants, whether they're perennials or herbaceous or annuals, they will get into problems when they're too low and they have growth that's too low. It tends to get towards the ground, it locks in moisture, it attracts pests, things like that. So yeah, I'm going to trim this off, clean it up a little bit, and plant it a little bit higher and more upright. That's better. So now it's a basket case, which is fine because it's a plant, not a animal. So not a huge handicap. That's what it looks like. So we'll top fill it with more soil. And then the soil around here that came out of the ground, we'll use that to backfill the hole that this guy came out of. As I mentioned before, it's a heavy clay soil, which is a good thing in certain regards because the subsoil is also very clay. And so the water will actually well up above the topsoil, above the subsoil, and keep the topsoil moist. It basically is forming a little cup, so that'll be good. And yeah, so the other thing we'll do is we'll trim up the other 2 oak leaf cherries, just so they don't feel neglected and left out of the fun here. So we talked about the deer damage, haven't talked about how we're going to remedy it, and basically we're fencing the property. I could micro fence all of the plantings here, but once you add up the aggregate of a bunch of small fencing projects, you're better off just fencing the whole thing, and it's long overdue. We needed to do it. I actually have a surveyor coming down to survey the property and mark the monuments out, and then we will put fencing up, and then the deer will no longer be a problem. So a ring around the base of the tree with the native soil, which is heavy clay, as I mentioned. It will work well for that. It'll act as a funnel and direct water to the planting hole. So, you know, I once spoke with a farmer who was very, very proud of her sandy loam, and rightly so. She had beautiful soil there, but you know, this is a clay soil. Some people turn their nose up at it. People who have better soil, but there's a lot of benefits to clay soil. You can use it. It tends to be expansive. It's mixed in with other things, and it's like a sponge. So as it rains and the water seeps into the soil, it expands, and it holds water very well, which is an important trait for soil to have during these very, very hot and very, very dry summers. So every time we dig, we harvest potatoes, all this nice schist. So once again, the rockmonger didn't think much of it, but it's good. It's stone, and stone is useful. You know, we'll treat it as an asset. I don't know, maybe I'll build a brick schist house or something. This is a plant that's doing really, really well. If you're in this sort of dry, hot Mediterranean climate, you want to plant as much sage as you can. Even now, on a 40-degree day when there's not a lot of molecular activity in the air, I can smell the beautiful scent of the sage. You can see it's healthy. You literally do not have to water these. They're drought resistant. The leaves are used for cooking. It has a beautiful purple flower that birds and butterflies and bees and hummingbirds just love. And it's very, very self-seeding. This thing has spread quite a bit. So we're gonna take the seeds and plant it elsewhere on the property. It does very well here. Beautiful blue sky and billowing cumulus clouds to the south. And rainy and overcast to the north. It started lightly raining here, so I pulled the tractor most of the way inside. And it's lunch anyway, so we'll go grab some lunch and see what the afternoon brings. Well, it's said that real men don't eat quiche, but everything's a matter of degree, right? I mean, what's a couple slices every once in a while? Well, you can see the weather's not improved, but the pattern out here is that usually in the late afternoon it clears up and the sun will break out for a while and everything, so I'm holding out hope. I'm going to get materials staged and ready to go. We have 2 more trees to plant. They're pluot trees. They're going to be trimmed up in an espalier style. And so, unfortunately, I won't be able to use the tractor because the planting spots are right close to the fence, and post hole augers and fences don't play well together. So, but I'll get all the soil and stuff together and we'll see if we can't knock it out real quick. Clover's good for soil. It might be leguminous. It almost looks like a legume, the leaf structure, but anyway. Here's our soil, and once again it's on a tarp. We're going to load it onto the back of the truck, which has a tarp. Anytime you're transporting materials, particularly soil, sand, things like that, just makes the transport and cleanup of those materials much easier if you use a tarp. So do yourself a favor, get in that habit.
Last week I was still, you're so used to shaking people's hands.
Right.
Nobody shake my hand.
Right.
I was feeding 2 bales a day, so I was like, man, I gotta...
Right, do something else.
So there's an old saying in the nursery business that you don't plant a $10 tree in a $5 hole. And you can see the size of the hole here relative to the size of the container. So this is a good ratio. I don't know that the video really does it justice, but by volume, this hole is actually probably about 8 times the size of the volume of the container. This tree is containerized. Unfortunately, it was a bare root tree. But at some point they have to put them in containers when the tree starts budding out, as you can see that it is. And so they actually have to trim the roots to put it in a container, which means a few things. It means the root system is smaller, which is unfortunate. It also means that they have more labor in the tree, which means they sell it for more. So I wish I'd gotten it in January when it was at the nursery, but that can't be helped now. And there you see the bare roots, and you can see where they've been trimmed. Unfortunately, as I mentioned before, there's some serious root pruning going on here, but that can't be helped. So this part, the graft has to be above ground. If it's too deep, roots might grow out here above the graft, and it takes over the growth hormones from the rootstock. Most fruit trees have a miniaturized rootstock, which keeps them small and manageable. If they grow roots from here, the tree will grow faster. Also, this graft here is susceptible to any sort of wood rotting agents, and so it should be above ground. As far as the compaction of the soil, you start with your hands, and then you move to your feet. And bottom line is there's a happy medium between compacted enough and not compacted. You want soil porosity, you want oxygen and the free flow of moisture, nutrients in the soil, but it's the substrate that supports the tree also, so it has to be compacted enough that the roots have something to hold on to and stabilize. So most soil is poor in nitrogen. Urea is a good form of nitrogen, but not until you have an established soil culture with bacteria that will break it down. Urea in a new planting like this will burn the roots, so you wouldn't want to apply urea here. Plus, I really don't want to get arrested. Alrighty, well, I think I've kept you guys long enough. You guys get the idea. Pretty much with the planting, you want to tip all the odds in your favor. You want to take the time to do it properly so that it survives and gives you many years of reward. So anyway, yeah, that's about it. I hope you enjoyed your visit to Sierra Foothills and hope to see you again soon. Take care.